Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Jackie, the Community Manager at Nordic Innovation House Singapore. Welcome to our closing event for the Smart and Sustainable Cities Virtual Market Entry Program. So this is our Minimizing Carbon Footprint in the Life Cycle of Buildings webinar, uh, organized by Nordic Innovation House Singapore. We are a community platform accelerating high-quality Nordic tech startups, scale-ups, and growth companies in Singapore and Southeast Asia. We are supported by Nordic Innovation, and we also have presence in Silicon Valley, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. If you'd like to find out more about us, please visit our website. In Singapore, our team consists of the Embassy of Finland, Innovation Norway, Business Sweden, Business Iceland, the Embassy of Denmark, and also supported by Norwegian Embassy and also the Embassy of Sweden. So today we will have opening remarks by His Excellency Stefan Lindström, the Ambassador for Digitalization and Technology from Finland. We also have keynotes and panel discussion on the topic of minimizing carbon footprint in the life cycle of buildings, followed by a Nordic showcase by our 11 selected Nordic companies in our program. So without further ado, I would like to welcome His Excellency Stefan Lindström for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Jackie. Hello to everybody from very cold Finland. The first snow fell here actually yesterday. We are dealing here today with issues with which I'm challenged at home every day at the breakfast table. Just the other day, my 15-year-old told me that you do realize that your generation is destroying my generation's future. Well, what do you answer to that? That is really what we are trying to do at this seminar today. Dear friends, in addition to climate change and technology, urbanization is one of the most prevalent global megatrends today. It is estimated that by 2050, 66% of the world's population is expected to live in urban areas. The challenges that come with this rapid urbanization are massive. Housing, transport infrastructure, fresh water supply, waste management, heating and cooling, and energy are just some of the services that cities need to provide for the new inhabitants. However, the urbanization megatrend represents also a clear opportunity to achieve sustainable long-term development. The high density of population in cities can bring efficiency gains and technological innovations while reducing per capita resource and energy consumption. We can use new building materials like green steel and green cement. At their best, cities can thus be efficient machines that produce contented populations through economic growth and better jobs, while also then remaining socially and environmentally sustainable. We need to think forward, think smart, and build smart. What springs to mind from me from saying that is really the children's animated book character Bob the Builder and his philosophy: reduce, reuse, recycle. Anyone with kids recognizes those words. To leave this world in a better shape for the next generations, we must change our thinking about how we govern and how we evolve our cities. We need a more what I would call holistic approach that acknowledges the complexity of tackling societal challenges. But technology can only take us so far. Social values, citizen involvement, and trust need to play a much stronger role in the process of managing this change. This is a very important point. We, as a bunch of technocrats, love to display all kinds of technological solutions and gadgets, but we also have to understand that they are totally useless unless the users, the citizens, want to use them, and can use them. We have to recognize that technology is the means, not the end. It is also important not to leave anyone behind. Senior citizens are really struggling to keep up with the technological pace that we are setting. Let me share you one practical example of this. My 80-year-old father faced an awkward situation last week at the market hall. When entering the fishmonger shop that he does virtually every second day, he was suddenly faced with a poster announcing the use of a QR code instead of the usual small device that gives out these paper queuing numbers. The poster said that you should scan the QR code with your smartphone and then it will give you your queuing number. Well, seriously, how many 80-year-olds have a smartphone and how many of them can actually use it for this kind of purposes? Not many. We cannot let these kind of things happening. Uh, this story has a good ending though, because one of the elderly customers got so agitated with this new policy that he threw a fish at the merchant, and the very next day the old queuing machine was back again. But dear friends, every day we face societal dilemmas in our habitats that cannot be solved without more care for the environment and more attention to the social impact of our actions. The ultimate challenge is to transform the elements in our societies that are unequal, linear, polluting, and unsafe into societies that are livable, dynamic, inclusive, green, and resilient. This is also, as I see it, the dynamism behind both the Nordic region's Vision 2030 and Singapore's Green Plan 2030 aim to become the most sustainable and integrated regions in the world. We share the goals and we share the visions, and we have similar targets. Uh, but more importantly, these ambitions are driven by shared values and practices, and we strive to achieve our goals through collaboration. This challenge cannot be solved within geographical, political, or cultural silos. And we have to acknowledge the need for cross-sector, cross-boundary collaboration to build on the best ideas and achievements from around the world. I think this seminar is an example of that attitude. This collaborative approach is very common for us Nordics. Our Nordic City Smart Roadmap with 5 Nordic countries and currently 20 Nordic cities is based on common Nordic values: solid societies with high social trust, advanced digitalization, welfare and growth, commitment to the common good, sustainable living, equality, collaboration and co-creation, openness and inclusion. With these, I dare to say, very strong values as building blocks, our ambition is for the Nordic cities and municipalities to act as drivers and facilitators for these kind of collaborative processes, employing new technologies, whilst at the same time empowering, protecting, and putting forward the interest of the inhabitants. Open data and the active role of citizens are really put to the core. The cities in the network can benefit from closer collaboration by sharing experience and best practices. Collaboration is also the key for companies to stay competitive in the global market. The collaboration can open new possibilities such as scalability for Nordic innovative companies and attract global investment. By exchanging concepts and experiences, we can also create new market opportunities for our companies, new areas of research and development, and ultimately, of course, then better communities for people to live in today and in the future. I have many times said that this kind of approach is really a sign of that we have internalized the notion of what I call the value of knowledge increases by sharing. Dear friends, the resilience of our cities, society, and living standards has just gone through an unpredictable stress test. The world changed drastically in just a few months. Our usually lively city centers and streets emptied faster than ever, and we faced new challenges. At the same time, the virus accelerated the need for digitalization, collaboration, and innovation. The escalation of the pandemic created what I call a sort of a living lab environment for other services that we had maybe not registered before, such as shelter in place needs for functional micro communities, crowd control, e-health surveillance, emergency services, cross-departmental data needs, and many more vital elements of a smart city. This dire situation also, what it led to actually is that we learned a lot. A few concluding words. It is around these forward-looking themes that we build smart, sustainable, and resilient cities of the future. Better quality of life and urban areas that are increasingly connected, powered by smart technologies, and at the same time adaptive societally. We believe that by aligning common activities, new technology, data and co-creation, Nordic collaboration can contribute to accelerate expertise and growth, not only within the Nordics, but globally, for the benefit of societies and the environment. It is in this crossroad of modern history where a new age of modern cities and its purposes, services, and infrastructure will take form. Dear friends, thank you for letting me speak to you today. This must have been the first time in my career when I managed to get the teachings of my kids, my father, and Bob the Builder into the same speech. Enjoy the seminar and build a better future city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stefan, for the opening remarks. Appreciate your time and time for joining us today. Next, throughout our next segment, we would like to bring. I would like to invite Pakista, for the Technology Counselor for Innovation Norway, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Pakista, please.
Thank you very much, Jackie, and many thanks also to Ambassador Lindström for setting the stage for this next session, the panel discussions. So after 2 weeks of many presentations and discussions on problem statements and technical solutions for this for the building industry in Singapore and the Nordics, with the Nordic companies, we will round off today with a panel discussion on one of the most relevant and urgent aspects of this, which is on the energy and climate footprint of the building and construction industry in general. So we have 3 great panelists sharing their insights and foresights on how this industry should and will contribute to reaching our joint global emission reduction targets. We have from Iceland, Associate Professor Sigridur Ósk Bjarnadóttir, or Siri, maybe somehow easier, of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at the University of Iceland. So Sigridur has been engaged in global climate change and its effect on built environments since 2008. Most recently, she worked as the lead sustainability consultant at VSO Consulting in Reykjavik, specializing in low carbon design and planning, specifically regarding the implementation of the circular economy within the building sector. And then from Singapore, we have Assistant Professor Clayton Miller of the School of Design and Environment at the National University of Singapore. So Clayton has been in Singapore and NUS since 2017 and is now heading up the Building and Urban Data Science Lab, or BUDS Lab for short. So the BUDS Lab is a scientific research group that leverages data sources from the built and urban environment to improve the energy efficiency and conservation, comfort, safety, and satisfaction of humans. And then from Norway, we have Professor Arild Gustavsen, which is heading up the Department of Architecture and Technology at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Arild is professor in building physics and is also directing the Research Center on Zero Emission Neighborhoods in Smart City, or ZEN, the ZEN Center in Trondheim, Norway. A great panel indeed. Just to repeat what Jackie said before the audience, if you do have questions or comments, please enter those in the chat stream, and then we will address them in due time during the panel discussions. So I would like to invite each of the panelists to give a short introduction to today's topic, starting with Siri. Siri, please. And you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's wonderful to be able to talk a little bit about what Iceland's doing. So Jackie, are you doing the slides? Yeah. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, just a little bit about the size and scale, I guess, of the University of Iceland. It is the largest teaching and research university in Iceland, but it is relatively small in comparison to what you are all dealing with, I guess, worldwide. We have about 13,000 students. If you go to the next slide. And then I am representing now the School of Engineering and Natural Sciences. I'm newly appointed here. I started in August now, 2021. I have been teaching here for the past year and a half while I've been doing consulting at VSO. And then we are a very traditional, I guess, department in that, we offer the traditional civil and environmental pathways for students. So that's my brief introduction into the University of Iceland. If you go to the next slide, please. So the question becomes, why are we looking into figuring out solutions for the built environment, I guess, in Iceland? Next slide. So we all know that the construction sector is a very demanding sector. It's responsible for about 40% of global carbon emissions across the world. We're also looking at 40% of global resource consumption and then 40% of global waste production. When we look at global resource consumption, we are within the built environment a lot looking into the non-metallic minerals. In Iceland, we build predominantly out of concrete. I do see an influx of timber buildings right now, which is fantastic. We need diversity in our built environment, but the solutions really, if you go to the next slide, need to come from the concrete industry in Iceland. We have load conditions that involve earthquakes. We have weather patterns that are horizontal driven rain, which we are expecting to increase now with climate change. And then we have this tendency to do what we are comfortable with, which is building in concrete. So it's been kind of my driving force for the past 2-3 years now, is try to find solutions working with industry for concrete in Iceland. And if we look at what, so I guess the bottom graph there is essentially how do we find pathways to reducing carbon emissions from the cement emissions. We can do a lot with decarbonization, as we are seeing in Norway with Lindström and Heidelberg, but that will only get us half the way. We need to find other solutions. So that's where this thinking of how do we implement circularity to get even further with those cement emissions. Next slide, please. Another thing, we need to maybe talk a little bit about how different Iceland is maybe from other countries in the world. Maybe not so much different from Norway, but our carbon emissions from the use of buildings is a lot less here. So we're not looking at huge reductions in what we do with our energy production. There's a lot more, in my opinion. Now, I am a structural engineer, so there's a lot more that we can do with the embodied carbon footprint. We need to kind of figure out with what materials we're building, and can we do that in a more effective way. Next slide, please. So the solutions, and then the next slide. We need to kind of get from this take, make, and waste mentality to a more circular mentality. So that becomes, when we looked at what can we do within Iceland, next slide, and can we develop an Icelandic circle house that is capable of withstanding Icelandic load conditions, but also be something that people want to buy and live in. Next slide. So we are working now we're working very intently with industry. So BM is one of the main concrete producers in Iceland. I'm working with a fantastic architect. And then I'm also working with the engineering company that I've been with for the past 3 years. So we're trying to develop these low carbon precast elements that have the capability to be disassembled and then reassembled. This is nothing new, but we do need to figure out how do we do this for Iceland. If you jump to the next slide, and you can just kind of click through the two and then to the next one. We're trying to figure out how we can make these elements something that people want to buy, I guess. And then the challenges, if you jump to the next one, we are dealing with load conditions. So if you're designing for earthquake, you need to design for earthquake in the first life, take it apart, and then the second life. Building traditions, we traditionally build cast in place concrete. So we even need to change that mentality, going from cast in place to this precast type of building. Building regulations are a bit of a problem right now. We are trying to use recycled concrete in our concrete. And that's another thing that we need to go through testing and make sure that the building regulations here, we are dealing with these thaw-freeze cycles that are very, they happen quite often in Iceland. And then we're also dealing with a lot of rain. It rains 220 days of the year here. And so that's something we're having to deal with. How do you carbon report when you're designing for the circular economy? That's something we need to get around. And then also we're looking at testing. What testing do we need to do on these elements? And that's my last slide. I hope that wasn't too fast, but yeah, thank you.
That was great. Sigrid. Good introduction to what you're doing in Iceland, especially on this concrete thing. I would like to give the word to Clayton. Are you concerned with concrete here as well, Clayton?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Thanks, Per Krister. So if you go to the next slide, that's just a cover slide. I'm going to talk today about coming back to Singapore. Yeah, we do have a focus on the materials a bit, but the big focus that we have here at NUS also is on the operations side and the energy and the thermal comfort. So I think a nice complement to what Siri just mentioned about the material side. So if you go to the next slide, my research team is a group of engineers, architects, but also computer science and data scientists. And we're working on ways to transform data from the built environment, the different types of spatial and temporal data from the built environment to help improve the way buildings perform on the operation side. If you go to the next slide, a little bit of background about the department I'm in, the Department of the Built Environment. We are now part of the School of Design and Environment, but soon we are going to be part of what's called the College of Design and Engineering. So we're being brought into the engineering, the architecture and built environments, brought into the engineering new college to really kind of cross-pollinate design and the technical side of engineering in a good way. If you go to the next slide, the thing I want to talk about today is the SDE4 building. It's our flagship net zero energy building, not net zero carbon, but net zero energy, which is really the big focus, I think, and we'll talk about this probably in the Q&A and discussion, is that really the strong focus in Singapore has been, let's bring our buildings to net zero energy, which of course is different than net zero carbon, which, like I said, we'll talk about those differences, but doing it in a way that we don't reduce the comfort in buildings. So we have high comfort, but yet very low energy buildings that we're able to produce as much energy as we consume across a year within the building. If you go to the next slide, there's a few, the next few slides are kind of different features of this building. So of course, tropical architecture is a big focus of this building. And this is slides from what we have in the building called the learning trail, that people can kind of walk around the building and learn about the building. And these are some of the stations that we have. And tropical architecture is, really making sure our buildings, commercial or non-residential buildings in Singapore, are climate appropriate. If you go to the CBD in Singapore, you'll see a lot of glass box skyscrapers that could be in New York City, they could be in London, but they're kind of not quite as fine-tuned to the climate that we have here. So SDE4 is a building that has a lot of focus on the tropical environment. Singapore never gets below 18 degrees Celsius. Like it's always year-round cooling. And so we don't, we can open up buildings. We can have a lot of open spaces, which you'll see in this building if you walk through the building, which really leverage the climate that we have here. If you go to the next slide, there's a system that we've implemented called hybrid cooling, which utilizes not just cold air, but also air movement. So this is very common in residential buildings in Singapore. Almost everybody has fans in their home, and they use that maybe in conjunction with air conditioning. But in commercial buildings and office buildings, it's almost never the case that you have multiple modes of cooling or comfort creation. And so this building has this new type of system that we've been utilizing and testing. And in commercial buildings, it's the control of these systems and the data collection, which is really important. If you go to the next slide, another interesting feature, of course, is net zero energy. So we have high performance solar panels creating as much electricity across the year as what we consume in the building. The building's been open since early 2019, and we have been not just net zero, but net positive energy Of course, in 2020, 2021, it's a bit cheating because not as many people are using the spaces as before, but even before COVID hit, we were net zero. If you go to the next slide, the wellness, so keeping people not just comfortable and happy, but also healthy in buildings. So the building, SDE4 is the first WELL gold building in Singapore, and the first WELL gold higher education building in the world, I believe. And so the WELL standard focuses on air quality, water, but also things like nourishment. So the food that's available in the cafe at SDE4 is healthy. Things like fitness. So we have the walkways and the staircases are very prominent, whereas the lifts are sort of hidden, things like that. If you go to the next slide, the last feature I'll talk about is biophilic design. Because we're in a jungle, because we're in a very warm tropical climate, we have this amazing opportunity to have vegetation built into the design of the building. And there's a lot of integration of nature and vegetation in the design. If you go to the next slide, it's not just about the design features, but also, like I said, I'm from the data science. My team does data science work. So we're trying to collect lots of data from the building. So here you can see an interface from an app called the Learning Trail, where we're actually giving people information about the building, but also asking them a few questions about how they feel in the building. And we converge that data with other data sources. If you go to the next slide, there's also, once again, collecting data from occupants. We have a smartwatch platform that we prototyped and deployed here. It's an open source project called Project Cozy, where we are collecting even higher resolution, spatially and temporally higher resolution from occupants to ask them questions about how they feel, and also give them feedback or nudges. If you've ever wore a fitness wearable, you know that it nudges you to make smart changes, whether get up and walk or stand or do things. So we're also looking at ways to nudge people to impact the way they use buildings, whether it be turn off the lights or open windows or do things that will help improve their comfort, but also the performance of the building. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that there's a lot of data collection and convergence. I won't go into the detail of this slide, but it's really beyond just the app. We're connecting that app to IoT devices, near body sensors. We actually have a technology that's a Finnish technology called SteerPath, where we're doing indoor localization. And so there's a lot of data and digitization behind this effort to get people more in the loop with how their buildings operate. If you go to the next slide, and here you can see some of those devices. In the upper right or upper left, you can see a point cloud of data being collected in the building. And if you go to the next slide, yes, and so with all that data collection, we also teach a lot of data science skills in the built environment. So if you're interested in that, there's an online course, an edX course, which is free for people to participate in and learn more about data science. And the very last slide is just an acknowledgement for all. I'm not obviously the only one doing this work, so these are some of the folks that have helped me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Clayton. So this SDE 4 building, is that actually operational now, or is it under construction?
Yes, no, it's been in operation since January 2019.
All right. Okay.
We're going on 2 years almost. Or
yeah. We'll come and visit you soon. Take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to pass the word over to Professor Arild Gustavsen from Norway, NTNU. Arild, your introduction remarks, please.
Yes, thank you for your introduction, Per Christer. The title of my presentation is Zero Emission Neighborhoods and Buildings, and I will show some examples from 2 research centers. The NTNU has been leading together with the SINTEF group and has been where we all have been working with more than 30 partners from industry, municipalities, and also governmental organizations. Next slide, please. So the first center is a research center on zero emission buildings, which were operating between 2009 and 2017. And we're still working on quite a lot of the same topics. But the key topic here was defining and construction of zero emission buildings, and then looking at the carbon emissions during the life cycle of the buildings. In 2017, we sort of changed the scale a bit, starting to look at the neighborhood scale. The topic or the objective is more or less the same. It's about speeding up the decarbonization of the building stock, but then to also connect more to infrastructure and technologies that can be used in a larger scale and also connected to the smart cities. Next, please. So an important task then in both centers has been to develop good, robust definitions of what a zero emission or a net zero emission, what that is, but also what a net zero neighborhood is. And this slide shows an sort of simplified version of this. So what we take into account is emissions related to operation. We take into account emission related to construction, to materials, and also related to the demolition phase. And the concept is then to have renewable energy production on the building or nearby the building that can compensate for all these emissions. And throughout the 8-year duration of the center, we have tested this definition in real building projects, as shown to the right in this slide. So this is a dwelling, can be office buildings, school buildings, and it can actually be any building. And then we sort of use the knowledge gain working with the industry partners to develop this definition framework further. And the next slide. So what you see then is that, of course, different building typologies and locations, and we will have different possibilities to work on different parts of the life cycle. For instance, it might be possible for one building to have a lot of renewable energy production, but for another site, it might not be so easy. So we have developed different ambition levels, and the overall aim is still to have projects or buildings where you try to minimize the emissions, and at the same time try to maximize the renewable energy production. So if you look to the next slide, you see the different ambition levels, where the lowest one is what they call zero emission in operation, but minus equipment. So we don't include the equipment and the plug loads. And then you have zero emission buildings in operation when we take into account all the emissions related to the operational phase. And then the next one is zero emission buildings with operation and materials. So then we also account for the material emissions, and this is not only in the construction phase, but also in the main or throughout the whole life cycle of the building, when you have to replace windows or other technologies during the 60-year lifetime we assume in the design phase. And the most ambitious one is the COME, which takes into account all the emissions from construction, operation, materials, and also end of life. Next one, please. I will show two examples. One is the SEB laboratory, which was completed last year. It's a 4-floor office building, and it's also a living laboratory. So it's both used on a day-to-day basis by workers at NTNU and SINTEF. And it is very well instrumented and has different technologies included. Next one. Just some of the solutions. In Norway, we use both wood and concrete and also other materials, of course, but in this building, to reduce the material emissions as much as possible, we ended up with a massive wood construction, a load-bearing construction. We have wooden facades where we do not have PV, because there are also a lot of PV, and especially on the sloped roof and the south, east and west facade, and you even have PV on the north facade, because in Norway you will also have some solar energy coming in from the north in the summertime. 2 twin rooms where we can compare technologies side by side and different settings or different use. Thermal storage with phase change materials, heat pumps, predictive control is possible, and it's also connected to district heating. And also the distribution of the electricity during the summertime to other building on campus is an important part, because we produce or harvest more renewable energy than we can use in the building itself. Next one, please. So if you look at the numbers, you see that we have renewable energy production during the use phase, that it's larger than the emissions related to the materials, construction, and use. And what is interesting, and what we see is the embodied emissions during the life cycle often is of the same magnitude or actually larger than what you see in the use phase. So working on the material side is very important when we make new buildings. And what Siri said, looking at circular solutions, circular materials, will be more and more important in the coming years. The next example, next slide, is a small dwelling built in the south of Norway. Owner Brødrene Dal and Optimera, architect Snøhetta. Next one. So also here they worked a lot with finding the right materials. So they wanted some thermal storage in the building and started out with concrete, but instead they ended up using bricks from a neighboring building that was taken down to have a lot less embodied emissions. So this is a zero emission buildings related to the operational phase and materials. Also use a lot of wood and combine different systems like a heat pump, photovoltaics, and solar collector. Next one. So here we look at the energy balance, and to the left we see what was technical regulations at the time of construction or around the time of construction. And so the yellow one can be compared to the yellow one to the right, which is quite a lot less. In addition, even if we include the energy use for material production, we have renewable energy production that can compensate for this. Yes, next slide. And then more recently, we started to work on the neighborhood scale because we see that optimizing one building might not give the best solution on a system scale. So then we include also more buildings, and we also start to include the emissions connected to the infrastructure connecting the buildings. So a zero emission neighborhood then aims to reduce its direct and indirect greenhouse gases towards zero within its life cycle. And the life cycle is then defined as 60 years for buildings and 100 years for the infrastructure. In addition to carbon emissions, we also promote high energy efficient buildings, and they should be powered by a high share of new renewable energy. We should manage energy flows in a flexible way. Next one. And when we start to look at the neighborhood scale and also the city scale, we get into transportation and mobility. So this becomes more and more important. We also have to look at the most economic sustainable solutions. We need to provide good spatial qualities and to stimulate sustainable behavior. So of course the user aspect is really important. And we also promote innovation. These centers are funded by the Research Council of Norway, and innovation is an important aspect. And then to my last slide. Yeah, I'll skip that. I think I've used the time. So then next slide. Next. So in conclusion, I think we need to start focusing on making zero emission or net zero emission and buildings and neighborhoods. So this will result in a reduction of energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. It will result in implementation of new renewable energy production, flexibility measures to accommodate more use of intermittent renewable energy, and coupling between sectors. For instance, freed up energy in the building sector can be used in the transport sector. And we also will see reduction of material use of more environmentally friendly materials and reuse of materials, and also reduction of transportation needs because of improved planning processes and introduction of more sustainable transport options. But there are some challenges, and we quite often run into these challenges when we work with the real problems, particularly regulatory barriers. The system or the regulation is not set up to, for instance, share energy between buildings if there are different owners. There are also different problem technology owners. If you look at in neighborhood scale, there were different building owners with different ambitions. And of course, different owners also for the planning of mobility and energy systems. Okay, thank you. And that was my last slide.
Thanks a lot, Arild, and to Sigrid and Clayton as well. We have 3 quick questions, so we'll take them now. The first one goes to Siri. What are the green concrete used in Iceland? Do you use or promote green steel?
Okay, so maybe so our building regulations are very tough because of our weather conditions. So we have a high amount of cement that's required per cubic meter of concrete right now. So we're having problems getting around the building regulations because I need to make sure that everybody in the project is aware that we are not following the building regulation. I am on the committee to change that building regulation in Iceland, so hopefully we'll make some change there. But we are definitely, we have projects and project leaders that want to take these, I guess, these chances. So we are working a little bit outside the regulation and looking into recycled concrete and all this. With regards to the green steel, we do have requirements on the, the content, the recycled content and the recyclability on the steel that we are using. So yeah, we're getting it that way.
Excellent, excellent. There is a question here, and I'll ask Clayton about this one. Is a zero emission building the same as zero energy building? I remember you said that focus in Singapore was on zero energy, not on zero emission.
Right.
So maybe you answer that, and Arild, if you want to chip in, you can do that.
And I think Arild had a great slide which showed that the different levels of ambition when it comes to net zero, the different things. And so that's really, I think, the thing that we can learn the most from our collaborators and colleagues in Nordic countries is we're not focused at all on net zero emissions from what I've seen in my research and none of my colleagues' research. In fact, so net zero energy, of course, is just the operational carbon that's used and consumed, but ignores the materials that the building's made out of and the carbon that goes into that. And so that's really a big thing that we can learn, I think, from the Nordic countries. I wouldn't even know how to get started doing a carbon like evaluation of our building. We did have a master's student actually come from NTNU and visit us, I think, a couple of years ago to take a look at our building and kind of give this like high level understanding of the carbon footprint of the building when it comes to the materials. But we're not in that direction hardly at all right now. So yeah, okay. A lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So if you want to comment, and at the same time, if you can answer a question about the material emissions, when you do these kind of life cycle or the summary of this one or add up, does it also take account the material that goes into technical equipment like solar panels?
Yeah. Okay. The first question to follow up on Clayton, I think net zero energy is part of our ambition levels. So, but it's on sort of on the lower side of it because you only take into account the operational phase. And sort of when you talk about zero emission buildings, we would preferably also include the materials. So it should be a bit more ambitious, or it can be, at least. About the material emissions, yes, if you look at the ambition level slide I showed, it can be taken out, but we are aiming to include everything. So technology for heating, ventilation, and also photovoltaic solar panels, heat pumps should also be included when you aim for the most ambitious SEB definition.
Yeah. There is a very, very interesting question here is on carbon capture. Are there tested and proven carbon capture technology used for buildings in the Nordic countries? I have one reflection there, but I'll leave it to you first. Well, maybe, what do you think?
Not on the building itself, but I think one of our partners, like Heidelberg Cement, developing concrete, right? They have tested technologies and are now also got a project funding that they will implement in practice. So they're aiming for almost zero emission concrete, I would say. So this is in the developing phase for some of the companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably, it makes more sense to do the carbon capture on the energy that you put or you use for the building in advance. It's like the same thing as having carbon capture on your car. It doesn't make sense. It's better to decarbonize the fuel before you use it in the car, and then you use the carbon capture on that decarbonization part. But anyway, Okay, one last one, and we go on how to convince private property owners to build net negative energy buildings and reduce emissions, especially in cities or countries with weak climate ambition. Well, that was leading into the last question I prepared for you, but we can take it now. It's quite interesting, actually. Maybe we can ask Siri first. How do you motivate Icelanders to build negative energy buildings?
I mean, yeah, it's difficult here when we talk about negative energy because we're just it unfortunately really doesn't kind of apply here. We don't have the capacity to make our buildings produce energy as it is right now. We don't have the solar capacity that it's ever going to be cost effective to go that route. We have been looking at like little independent wind turbines and things like that because we do have a lot of wind power here. So what we've been really looking at is this, the zero emissions. Can we cut down, our the material emissions? And that's been really tough. If I talk a little bit about Iceland, again, we are, when we look at the climate budget of Iceland, the construction sector is only responsible for 3% of carbon emissions that are allocated to Iceland. So that is only the emissions that happen here in Iceland. Okay, so that's only from the the machinery that we use to build our buildings. Whereas we are, we're building out of concrete. We build really well. I mean, we build expensive buildings. So that means that the materials that are coming into Iceland are very carbon intensive, but they are, allocated elsewhere. And so that's really been the challenge, is trying to get everybody involved in the fact that we are, we're doing a lot of emissions, but they are elsewhere. So you need to make these decisions in your designing, and we needed to really apply this whole life cycle approach. So for the past 3 years, I've seen a huge, there's so much momentum, and it's been such a fun thing to watch just as these this kind of mentality is growing. We're seeing now the financial institutions, the banks, are now giving us these green loans that are really helping, really putting a little bit of influx into these green projects. But it's really been, it's been slow moving, but it's going now.
I like to follow up on this one, actually, on the kind of the users or the inhabitants in the buildings engagement in this one. So to reach these targets, well, I mean, we can address them with the technology. Clayton, you listed a whole range of technologies and as well, all kind of construction methods, smarter and digitalized operations, all these kind of things. But it really takes engagement, and I think the ambassador also had a point on that one. It really takes engagement and motivation for the inhabitants to do that. So are we from different cultures? And I'll ask you, Clayton, you have one foot in Asia and the other foot in America or Europe. Are there any cultural difference? Are there any difference in the incentives, the motivation, the drivers for us, the users, to act differently, to become greener? What are the drivers, you think?
That's a great question. Transformation of the market, goes hand in hand with transformation of the expectations of people who use buildings. And so a good example from operations research that we've done at SDE4 is the system that I mentioned before, this hybrid system. So creating cooling without just fresh, blasting cold air into a space, moving the air, radiant, cooler surfaces with radiant cooling. There's different ways to create comfort besides just American style air conditioning, which is what we mostly have in commercial buildings here. So the first thing we have to do in SDE4 is create that type of system and just show people that it works. Like a lot of people are hesitant to try this because they think, well, what if everyone complains? What if it's really bad? And what if this, what if that? And in the building, we've actually done a lot of studies to survey people and to collect data and see how people react to these hybrid systems. And people are like surprised, like, wow, this really works, and I really enjoy this. This is even better, I think, than wearing a jacket all the time in a highly air conditioned building. So that first step with the research that we do, that first step is just changing people's initial perception that it's not possible, showing them it's possible. And then the market, if more and more people start saying, okay, well, this is possible, let's do this, then you get economies of scale, and then you get, this kind of like tipping point where it becomes mainstream in the market, I think. So we're just trying to do our part as researchers, but of course, there's a lot of forces at play besides just the technology and the research. So
Clayton, you also mentioned that the focus for this, what you're doing is to go towards net zero without reducing comfort, meaning that you can have it for free. It's kind of for free. But if you had to reduce comfort in the order to really reduce the carbon footprint, would people be willing to do that?
That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough request to ask people, and we don't want to do that either because it has an impact on their productivity and their satisfaction. So like the cost of manpower is so much higher than the cost of energy that you don't want to have an impact on the way people perform in the built environment. So we have to figure out ways that maintain that level of comfort. Maybe we ask people to think about comfort differently, because a lot of times in Singapore, we have over conditioning. It's too cold in offices. So a lot of people, they have a wardrobe of long sleeve, like fall weather, winter weather attire, right? And so we have these new system types. They realize, well, some of my wardrobe is obsolete, so it's not, sometimes it's not even about thermal comfort. It's just about changing habits and behaviors and things, but you can still achieve that level of comfort. And we're also looking at ways to nudge people to make choices that help them achieve comfort. So if I like it to be cool and you like it to be warm, maybe we can nudge people to go to different spaces when you're doing solo work, especially with the more flex-based working that we're seeing because of the new normal, as people say. So kind of nudging people to make decisions that'll help make them comfortable, as opposed to one size fits all comfort as well.
So what do you think, Arild, in Norway, what are the drivers for people to invest in retrofitting their buildings, for example, or put a bit of extra technology into new buildings? Is it the cost saving? I mean, we do have ridiculously high energy prices in Europe right now. Or is it the feeling of, the Greta Thunberg kind of feeling of saving the world? Is it social pressure? Is it government instructions or which one works best?
I think Clayton has said a lot. I think that can help people make the right decisions. But in particular, I think more strict building regulations and also better support schemes are important, more or better incentives. In Norway, for instance, the building regulations have been gradually tightened, I think approximately every 5 years in recent years. And the government has also provided incentives, for example, for making more energy efficient buildings than the requirement. And also for specific technologies like heat pumps, solar collectors, and photovoltaics. And as a result, we have seen that the energy use has flattened out during the recent years, even if there has been an increase in the total built area. So it helps, but I think even stricter regulations and stronger incentives are needed if we're going to have a decrease in energy use, and that is what we are aiming for. So, so the government needs to speed up and to act now for this to happen, because I'm afraid what you see if people are left with this decisions themselves, energy efficiency is usually not what they invest in when they are upgrading their buildings. It's usually a new kitchen or a new bathroom, actually. So, but things are changing. So we see, so maybe people will make the right decision regarding energy efficiency more often in the future. But I think in the bottom, you need better incentives and stricter building regulations.
I see we're running out of time, and that's thanks actually to the audience with the excellent questions. There are quite a list of questions that we don't have time to respond to directly, but we'll pick them up, and I don't know how we're going to distribute them. And maybe Jackie, you can find a good way of sharing those answers. But I'd like to round off by asking each of you the final questions on cooperation across countries. And this also reflects to the cohort of the Nordic companies that has been spending these 2 weeks on promoting Nordic solutions, Nordic technologies into the build industry in Singapore, but also Southeast Asia. So we'll hear more of them just after this panel. But from your experience in the academia and the research area, where do you see the most relevant areas of co-invention, co-development, research perhaps, between the Nordics and Singapore? Maybe it's unfair to ask Clayton about that, but I can at least start with Arild. I think what areas do you see? You've been many years, or at least you've been following Singapore for many years, so you kind of know what Singapore is struggling with as well.
It's a good and a big question, I think.
Yeah. We have only 4 minutes.
I think what is important is that we aim for the most environmentally friendly solutions.
Yeah.
And that might be done with different technologies, depending on the setting, depending on the building. So from my experience, I think we achieve most in the research community and industry work closely together in real building projects. And then we can combine high environmental ambitions with the development and use of new technologies, or it can be new technologies and can be existing technologies. And we can test this in a real setting. And then we can learn from that, and we can bring that knowledge with us into the next projects, and maybe improve or even increase the environmental ambition. And in this regard, I think living laboratories are important, because then we can test out new solutions that might not be mature enough to use in a real commercial project. And so then we can allow for prototype testing before the products are ready for market. And I think if we work together, companies from both the Nordics and Asia, we can collect the best competence from both places and the best products from both areas. And this can help us all together speed up the transition to a more sustainable built environment.
So real buildings and real pilots. But how about, Clayton? How about using digital solutions, digital twins, for example? Where you simulate a building or a neighborhood or environment. I mean, Singapore is doing these digital twins in the areas like Punggol, for example.
Right.
Can that be used? Is that useful, or you need to have the actual physical building?
No, absolutely. I mean, a lot of digital solutions. In fact, one of the digital solutions that we use in SDE4 is a company from Finland that has indoor localization and digital twin type technology called SteerPath. And so we see a lot of interesting sensor technologies, digital twin technologies. There's a lot of things happening in Nordic countries that can be applied here. But also, like I mentioned before, this quantification of carbon in our building materials. I don't know if that's not really a product, but that's knowledge. That's definitely knowledge that we could learn from the research being done and the industry in Nordic countries. So
we have to round off. Ask Siri or Sigridur for the last question. I mean, Iceland and Singapore are both island countries. Quite different though. Right. Very different in all respect, I think, when it comes to climate, when it comes to building habit, when it comes to natural resources, energy, and this. But what do you see? Are there any commonalities? Are there anything you can bring to Singapore and vice versa that is relevant to address these challenges, these joint challenges?
Well, I mean, I think just from listening to what Clayton's been saying and what I've been saying, we kind of have, the different poles of the emissions, cake, I guess, we're looking a lot into material efficiency and all of this. And then you guys are really on the forefront of data and all of this technology. How do you engage your user? And that is where we want to go. And we've also been following NTNU for the last, years. Norway's really one of the countries we follow. We aim to kind of follow the strict regulations that are going on there, and hoping that, Iceland's jumping on the bus. We have this tendency to move really, really fast when we get going. So there, that tends to be, we catch up quickly. So I see, there's a lot of, all of it kind of fits together to kind of figure out solutions that are really have the capability of being implemented to drive down the carbon emissions and the energy emissions from the built environment. So I think collaborations like this are just vital if we want to have real impact.
Thank you very much. I see the chat and the Q&A here. There's so many really good questions that we should have followed up on, and that shows the interest for this area, especially very, very good on the point. Unfortunately, if we do, Jackie is going to kill me and you, so we have to stop here. But we will find a way, Jackie, to pick up on the questions and thank you very much to Siri, to Clayton, to Avel for a great introductions and great discussion. So I'll pass the word back to you, Jackie.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Give me a moment. I'm trying to adjust something. Sorry about that.
And hey, while Jackie is organizing, so I'm Riku from Jackie's Nordic team. So please, panelists, please answer those good questions in Q&A, because there are many questions where you can answer based on what you discussed just there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's the point. You can do that directly in the writing here. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry for that. Since 4 of you are here, can you just smile for the camera for me so I can take a quick screenshot? 1, 2, 3. Great. So now we're actually going to move on to our next segment. I'm just going to quickly remove the spotlight from our speakers. Thank you so much for the great panel discussion, actually. So now I'm going to share my slides again. Pardon for the delay. So next, we're actually going to have our Nordic showcase. So a quick 2-minute pitch by our amazing 11 selected Nordic companies in our Smart and Sustainable Cities program. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the first company, Entos. Timo, please.
Hey, hi there. Greetings from snowy Finland. And we're at Entos. We are helping or making the buildings breathe by optimizing indoor climates for health and sustainability. Today, for the past 2 years, the schedule of life has changed for all of us. So we're not commuting that much between our homes and offices. We're working largely from a home. And however, typically the ventilation systems haven't been following that. In many cases, the ventilation is time-based, clock controlled, and it's not following the schedule of our daily lives. And we're changing that with our sensor product, which replaces the timer, replaces the clock with intelligent measurement. Next, please. So we're transforming buildings for the future and actually for current time today, and by providing a device that attaches virtually to any ventilation system, provided it has an electric motor. And we measure the exiting air for a number of factors for CO2s, VOCs, temperature, humidity, pressure, and adjust the ventilation power accordingly, making the building breathe according to the actual usage of the building. And that's about the thing we do. From Singapore, we're looking for partners and pilots to test our system in the closer to equator conditions, because in Nordic countries, we've already delivered 350 systems in Finland mostly, and we're having a lot of happy customers with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Timo. Next, we have Halva. Amalan, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amalan. I look after the Halva business for the Asia Pacific region, and I'm actually based in Singapore. So at Halva, we provide intelligent lighting solution globally. 100 years ago, we started off as a small factory in Finland, but today we have global presence in more than 70 countries. Our mission is to bring brighter spaces into every building. And we do this by providing carbon neutral, energy positive solution to increase the well-being of the occupancy within the building and to reduce energy. We do this by using artificial intelligence technology, smart sensing technology, and data analysts to capture the readily available data within the building, analyze them, and share it with other building solution providers to reduce cost, energy, and most importantly, for you to design and optimize your space better. You'll find us in many segments, including healthcare, education, offices around the world. With a range of lighting components and lighting control products within our portfolio, we're able to provide you a fit-for-purpose solution, regardless if it's a standalone solution, a wired solution, or wireless solution. Next slide, please, Saki. Insight is a software as a service. Here, we collect data, regardless if it's a wired, wireless, or even a hybrid Halva solution, analyze them automatically, and give it back to you in an understandable and usable format. Insight also monitors your lighting control 24/7 and be able to give you notification when there is a failure within the system. With Insight, we're able to also analyze the occupancy created by the data from the sensors within the building for you to understand how the building is utilized. Thank you very much for your time. We're really keen to speak to stakeholders listed on the slide. Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Amala. Next, we have Smart Watcher. Pauli, please.
So, good afternoon, Singapore. I'm Pauli from Smartwatcher. Our mission is to make sure our customers' indoor environment is clean and safe. Sorry, there was a message. Jackie, next slide, please. We have a monitor that's very easy to use. We're using high quality sensors. We have, of course, all the dashboards, multiple tools for visualization. Setup is modular, so you can have whatever sensors you like. And more or less, if we don't have it, we will have partners who can build it for us or develop for us. The other element is purification. We have best-in-class purification device, and it's operated on need basis only based on the data from our sensors. We can clean more or less 100% of the bacteria, viruses, molds, and fine particles. And one device, you can see it on the ceiling there, can clean up to 200 square meter space. Third element is optimization. You can connect the data from our device to your building management system and optimize the conditions, and likewise also minimize the energy consumption. The benefits are multiple. Of course, when working in a clean and safe environment, the productivity is increased. Also, there's less sick days, up to minus 35%. If you certify your building with WELL or LEED, you can gain higher rents and the value of property is increased. And when optimized conditions, you can save up to 20% in energy cost. And of course, by doing all this, you have stronger image. We have monitored thousands of sites worldwide. We are #1 in Finland and Sweden, having a strong growth in Central Europe and Middle East. In Singapore, we are looking for partners for business and for co-development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauli. Next, we have Meshworks Wireless. Riku, please.
Yes, hello. I'm Riku Moilanen, and we come from Meshworks Wireless, OY from Tampere, Finland. Our company was founded in 2007. We provide IoT monitoring for facility management, pharma, and transportation. We work with two brands, Seamoto and Fieldplace. Seamoto is for cold storage and cold chain transportation with cloud service. And Fieldplace that traditionally has been for indoor air quality monitoring with cloud service. But in Singapore, we have been focusing on digital twin on smart buildings. Next slide, please. And Fieldplace Digital Twin for Smart Buildings is an open platform smart building dashboard. And it is an immersive 3D visualization running on normal browser and normal laptops. And what we do, we collect the data from the building from the cloud, and we create a centralized view of building data in 3D. And this increases autonomy, efficiency, and overall better use of resources. For example, like the excessive cooling that we were discussing in the panel. This can be applied into public and government buildings, residential developments, to hospitals and healthcare. And what we do in Singapore, we are here for the looking for smart building projects to deploy digital twin for new smart buildings, also for retrofitting existing buildings with the digital twin, together with partners that we are looking for in the programs. And last but not least, we are also looking to increase our presence in the Southeast Asian market. So we are looking for a channel partner to represent us in the region. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Riku, for Meshworks Wireless. Next, we have Zortech. Yoni, please.
Good evening. I'm Joni Kääriäinen. Zortech is a company with a long history. We are manufacturing electronics and designing electronics and software. During almost 30 years of existence, we've been dealing with most of the industries, and that has given us a wide technological knowledge base. Our reason to be here is that we are looking for collaboration with local companies and we are looking for retailers for our main IoT products. Next, please. We can offer IoT sensors, devices, and components, all designed and manufactured in Finland by us to meet highest standards in business. We use materials like cellulose fiber composite instead of plastic to lower carbon footprint of our products. Our devices can be powered up with most common battery types or even with old phone chargers, and they are designed to last long. All this with the prices that I haven't seen in this business so far. Very interesting offering from us is data as a service. It's a kind of a leasing model, meaning that we arrange data collection with our devices and our customer pays modest starting cost and monthly or yearly fee from the data. Then we have end-to-end solutions, which are basically services fully integrated to main IoT devices. Our philosophy is to keep things simple but highly functional. We have solutions for both consumers and businesses. So if anyone is interested in retailing, these are the products we are talking about. As we do everything in-house, we can modify or customize every single part of the system to serve purpose of every use case best possible way. And we have a great ability to solve problems and create new. So I encourage anyone with new ideas or use cases without proper solution, turn to us. I'm easy to approach and based here in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joni from Zotec. Next, we have Hautian. Juha, please.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juha Alanen, based here in Singapore, running Hautian business for Asia Pacific region. And on behalf of Hautian, I would like to welcome you all to this session and thank you for participating. So Hautian is here looking forward to collaborate, cooperate, and partner with local Singaporean companies and entities to bring our unique know-how and solutions to enable building of a smart city of Singapore. So what Hautian portfolio then includes? Jackie, next slide, please. We have a full solution offering from IoT solutions and technology, named as, thank you, Thingsy family, to digital twin software called Empathic Building. And in addition to this, we also provide customization projects for demanding customers. So here in this slide, you can see the solution offering. On the right-hand side, you can see Thingsy sensors offering variety kind of data, just to name a few, environmental, industrial, and occupancy, for example. Data is then carried via gateway, either cellular or LAN connection to Operation Cloud, where a customer can then fetch it either using our Empathic Building or their own dashboard software. All this enables the utilization of a smart environment with easy to install and maintain technology. So Hautian Thingsy IoT sensor solution consists of sensors, gateways, cellular connectivity, and cloud solution for device lifecycle customers. Sensors are small battery-powered devices that collect temperature, indoor air quality, and occupancy data, for example. Thingsy IoT solution is scalable, secure, and works out of the box anywhere in the world. Thank you very much. Hautian is very much looking forward to continue further discussions with you here in Singapore.
Thank you so much, Juha. Next, we have Annoy Software. Jorma?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jorma, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Aneo Software from Finland. Next slide, please. Businesses are struggling with their aging assets, so we developed a cloud-based maintenance management system called Aneo Zero for corrective and preventive maintenance that helps you keep your assets in good working order and your operations up and running 24/7. Early detection of faults and failures is made possible by installing IoT sensors and by allowing your people to use their smartphones to report observed hazards and risks and create service requests quickly on the spot. Aneo Zero mobile application makes the documenting and reporting as well as requesting maintenance services easy. Fast correction is made possible by using a cloud-based maintenance management system like Aneo Zero. Zero can create and allocate work orders for execution automatically based on the received service requests or imported condition data, which will enable you to repair your faulty equipment and failed machinery very fast. Smart inspections are made possible by customizing operations of every check object of your assets separately. ANEO Zero makes the planning and execution of your customized inspections easy for your maintenance team, who can quickly report detected faults and failures during inspections and collect condition data manually, if you don't have monitored the asset condition by IoT sensors already. Optimized prevention is made possible by selecting the right type of maintenance program for your assets. ANEO Zero enables you to create calendar-based, meter-based, condition-based, or prediction-based recurring work orders to reduce your maintenance expenses, increase your operational availability, and eventually reduce your unplanned maintenance downtime to zero. Please don't hesitate to call us for more detailed information or request an online software demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yoma, for ANEO software. Next, we have Space Hub. Thomas, please.
Hello, my name is Tuomas Ilola, and I'm the CEO of Space Hub. The way we work and use corporate real estate has become more and more mobile and employee and team driven than ever before. At the same time, the need for privacy has increased due to the drastic increase in teleconferencing. Space Hub is all about providing the easiest possible solution for getting a private meeting and workspace for individual as well as for corporate needs. Space Hub offers private on-demand spaces in the most convenient locations in the city where people already like to spend time and meet each other. These places include shopping centers, railway stations, airports, building lobbies, or even cafeterias. Next slide, please. So how does Space Hub actually work? We automate the space rental with a mobile application that allows the users to find, book, and access the spaces they need. We support two types of spaces. Sound isolated pods of 1 to 8 people for public spaces that do not have existing meeting or workspaces. These are ideal for supporting also existing service ecosystems in buildings. Then 2, we provide existing meeting spaces and workspaces an easy way with a retrofittable Bluetooth lock that takes 30 minutes to install and costs typically around 500 Singapore dollars. Our mission is to really make space rental just convenient and easy for the users as well as for the real estate owners. We're looking for partners in Singapore from the real estate owner community as well as for companies who look into providing this kind of a hybrid workspace model for their customers and employees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas, from Space Hub. Next, we have Institute for Energy Technology. Peter?
My name is Petter Kvalvik, and I'm the program manager for My Digital City, a Norwegian smart city initiative. My Digital City is represented here in Singapore by Institute for Energy Technology, which is one of the consortium partners in this smart city program. Institute for Energy Technology was founded back in 1948 and has also been the host for the OECD Halden Reactor project since 1958. Our research includes digitalization, renewable energy, environmental technology, decommissioning LCA, and battery technology. I will focus on digitalization here today. With regard to the research area of digitalization, the Institute has 4 business areas: energy, smart cities, industry and space, and transportation. And human-centered digitalization is in the core of our research activities. The My Digital City Consortium consists of both industry partners, research organizations, the public sector, and academia. You can see our focus areas in the green figure on the right-hand side. I would like to emphasize on the importance of sustainability, citizen engagement, pilots, and digital infrastructure in this overview. Change slide, please. We are a bit different than the rest, and this year we are trying to get an overview of the challenges and the needs of the organizations participating in this program. My Digital City and Institute for Energy Technology are looking for collaborative research and innovation opportunities. We can provide consultancy, and we are looking for knowledge exchange between the countries. We have both established businesses and new and upcoming startups in our customer portfolio, and we would really like to promote them in Singapore. My Digital City is emphasizing on the Horizon Europe research program and the mission climate neutral and smart cities within 4 thematic areas: decarbonization strategies, quality of life for the citizens, digital infrastructure and data sovereignty, and resilience in smart city infrastructure and for protecting the citizens. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Peter, from Institute for Energy Technology. Next, we have Sensitive. Robert?
Yeah, I'm here. So hi everybody, my name is Robert. I'm from Sensitive, a company from the south of Sweden. We believe that larger organizations will have hundreds of thousands or millions of connected devices generating both data and functionality in the context of smart cities. Now, the challenge for these organizations will then be to orchestrate these devices and the data that these devices generate. And we firmly believe that it will be problematic and troublesome to maintain and operate hundreds of fit-for-purpose vertical solutions. So instead, we propose to work with a holistic kind of macro approach in a modern architecture that is, creating a truly managed open ecosystem. So next slide, Jackie. Sensitive is an IoT product company. Our platform, Ugio, is developed with this in mind. So we are ready to cater for millions of devices in an open, large-scale IoT smart city context, where we put our partners and customers in charge of their own digitalization. We do work with mobility, traffic flows, air quality solutions, energy, waste, water, elderly care, and so forth. We do have a black belt in IoT, and we are looking for partners and friends in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, from Sensitive. Last but not least, we have Artasvin. Evren.
Hello, my name is Evren Dönmez, CEO of Artasvin, House of State-of-the-Art Solutions in Environmental Technologies. Artasvin R&D expertise is capitalized on 40 years of engineering and manufacturing legacy of Artas sister companies. We design, produce, and implement water, waste, air, and bioenergy solutions. Our technologies solve problems dealing with access to clean water for drinking in rural and urban settings, water treatment for specific industrial use, wastewater reuse and recycling, wastewater and sludge disposal, organic waste management, waste gas treatment, and renewable energy from waste. We develop fully integrated standalone zero waste solutions. We chose Singapore as a hub to scale up our technologies and operations in Asia. And next slide, please. Our products include seawater treatment, mobile water treatment to meet instant water demand, sewage and industrial wastewater treatment, wastewater reuse integrated with solar panels, flue gas treatment, compact and modular organic waste management system named Armut. Our modular products make it easier for us to design and implement tailor-made solutions based on our customers' needs. We treat the wastewater for recycling, we take the sludge, gardening waste, and together with the biodegradable kitchen waste, we fed them into our compact biogas plant where we generate biogas and fertilizer. The generated fertilizer at the outlet is completely safe to be used at the recreational areas. We integrate water treatment products with waste and bioenergy and deliver a holistic environment system strategy. We have designed and delivered over 400 solutions to international companies globally. We see the future in Asia and would like to partner with prestigious entities. Thank you. We look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for Artasvin. So that brings us to the end of the Nordic showcase by our 11 selected companies. So if you are interested to connect with these companies after this showcase, please email your list of companies names, the company names to me. I'm Jackie, the community manager at Nordic Innovation House Singapore, and we will help to follow up between you and the company in the introductory email. And then, of course, after this session, we will share the recording as well as their presentations as well. So this brings us to the end of our webinar. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you had some insights about smart buildings and also minimizing carbon footprints in the life cycle of buildings. And hopefully the Nordic solutions that is showcased today pique your interest to find out more and perhaps have a further discussion. So with that, Thank you once again to our panel speakers and also Stefan for joining us as our opening remarks speaker, and of course our Nordic companies, and of course the attendees from Singapore or anywhere else from the world. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great Friday, and we see you soon again. Thank you.